We might have an early show title.
Live.
Hello, welcome to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode number 402. I am Otto, and tonight I am joined with Jared Schneiderman.
What's up, guys?
MDM on demand himself, Alex 46079636.
Yep, Alex Bunch of Numbers is here. Good to see you guys.
And Nikki Pinecone.
Yo.
And Mike Seymour Mac.
Yo, what's up? What's going on?
What's going on?
Thanks
man?
for having me.
Yeah, man. No problem. We were just talking about in the, we were talking beforehand in the pre-show about like first time we met you was on the Republican bus out to Pittsburgh. For the Pennsylvania convention.
Yeah, it was funny. I remember when I think I linked up with you guys in
like kind of like Harrisburg.
Yeah.
And
I just come walking up and nobody knows who the fuck I am because I've been living under a rock for the past few years. And I'm just like carrying this whole camera rig and shit. And everybody's like, who the fuck is this guy? He's like, is this guy cool? And Heist is like, no, he's.
I don't feel like to look at you. I assume you've been living with Ted Kaczynski, not under a rock.
Yeah. Well, we were
Pete
same rock.
So jealous.
Yeah.
A rock house.
Yeah. No, that was a good trip though, man. It was an eye opener because I took a humongous hiatus when Ron Paul didn't get elected in 2012. So
you were kind of away for a while.
Yeah, I was away for a little bit. Yeah. Stepped away for a minute. And then to kind of like see, because I met Heist in probably 2010 or some shit like that, 2009, somewhere around there. And it's just incredible to see like kind of like where he started and just like what he's become now. He's, to me, he's High Spot 3000 forever, but for everybody else, he's become this, this idol.
You were just so inspired by all the racism and bigotry that he's constantly spewing in just like never-ending streams.
And then the way he like leans into it just unapologetically,
Yeah.
He's like, yes. So what? What are you gonna do about it? No. So it was cool though, but to like come back and then just to kind of like get reinvigorated by Dave Smith and it, like when I saw him speak at that event, what was it? The night before the LPPA convention in 21. It was like the same feeling that I had when I saw Ron Paul speak in Tampa at the Sun Dome. And it was good, man. It gave me chills and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, all right, there's still something here. Cause for a long time I was like not impressed by any of the candidates that were being run. I mean, Jo Jorgensen, I couldn't tell you one thing about her. I mean, now I could tell you a couple things about her. None of them are nice, but like, then it was just like, wow, I have no interest in looking up this person. I was never a Gary Johnson fan. And then when he linked up with Bill Weld, it was just like, it was a no-brainer to just go back to sleep. So
when Jo Jorgensen spoke at the LP convention, that's when I went back up to my room and took a nap because I was either going to take a nap on the convention floor or I could be comfortable in my hotel room.
I know I missed it too. So don't feel bad.
She did that this year or the last time?
This past year, and I'm just like,
oh, wow.
All right, I can't do this. We're not going to vote for about a good hour. She's going to drone on. I was like, let me go up to the room, take a nap.
She seems like a nice lady.
The best thing that I ever heard was what Dave say. Like she seems like a very nice wife of a good libertarian man or something like that. Like she's in the room. She can overhear the conversations, but she doesn't really know what the fuck she's talking about. And she does seem like a nice lady, but she is so fucking boring, so uninspiring. Mm-hmm. I was in the YouTube chat when she was giving that fucking snooze fest, and it was just hilarious.
Well, we all remember during her campaign when Spike had that fucking banger video that Smots produced. It's like going viral, and they had it taken down like the morning after it was created because it was too wild. Get two people riled up.
It's too extreme.
Yeah, right.
It was very, very extreme. Very, very.
Yeah. So all this is going on. You're out in Pittsburgh. But so the thing was, Mike, I didn't even know. I thought like you did film. I thought you did filming full time. I thought that was your gig, but this whole time, and then you were on Dan Smots' podcast, and you go down a rabbit hole, and that you work for a pharmaceutical company. I was like, oh shit! Like I didn't even know about this. Like this.
Yeah, So I was like pretty effective at keeping that a secret for
Yeah,
like
yeah.
13 years.
Yeah.
For like a couple of reasons. Like one, online, like so like I used to make music, right? I used to rap, like me and Dan Smots actually have a lot in common. We kind of walk the same path in two different cornfields. But he like same fucking shit. So like I used to make music, and then that led to like audio engineering, and I went to school for engineering, so I did like studio engineering, and then like concerts, a lot of like heavy metal fucking bars and shit like that I would do sound for. And then like we were fucking poor, like we were barely able to scrap up enough money for like fucking cheeseburgers every weekend, and weed and beer, of course. And then like a case of Lion's Head, and then like 20 fucking 20 junior fucking burgers at the fucking Wendy's, and then just as much weed as you can get. And then
like that was a form of payment.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for
we would sell
sound
enough
engineering.
CDs to just like feed our addiction for the week and then get us to the next show, and that was it. But and then like so we were like, man, it'd be really cool if we had like a music video. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll just fucking like pick up this cheap ass camera and just figure it out. And that's kind of like where I started doing, as you would call it, filmography. You almost called it filmography before, but yeah, like videography, man. And
Videography,
yeah. So like when I started doing that, I was doing that from like high school. I'm 38, so like when I was 18, I started fucking around with the music shit. And then in 2009, after many years of doing the music thing and going up and down the East Coast and everywhere from like Portland, Maine, all the way to Tampa to play at Paul Fest in 2011, 2012, whenever it was. It was cool, man. Lots of good memories, but never made any fucking money at all. So it was just like, okay, I might have to like actually start paying some bills here. And then I started working at this pharmaceutical company, Sanofi Pasteur, and it's like top 5 biggest companies, vaccine producers in the world. I think, like top 5 in the world, maybe like top 3 in the country. And just kind of fell ass backwards into it. Started through a temp agency and started just kind of doing that. And then in 2014, late 2013, my girlfriend at that time got pregnant, and I was like, okay, I better like take this shit serious, because like I was still doing music, and then every weekend I would do shows like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday I'm supposed to show up for work. I would never fucking show up on Sunday. And then I finally like went in for like a interview to get hired full time, and it fucking killed the interview. And then right at the end, I remember the lady pulls out this paper. She like unfolds this paper and she goes, "You want to explain all these absences?" And I don't know what it was. Maybe I was hungover from doing shows that weekend, but I was like, yeah, if I was hired full time, you would have paid me for all those days off. So I don't know what to tell you. So, needless to say, they didn't hire me at that point, and then they went on a hiring freeze for 5 years. So it took me like 5 years as a temp to finally get hired full time. I was just talking out of my ass. I don't know why I did that, but yeah. So I started, kind of just taking it serious, and especially when my wife was pregnant, like obviously got to pay the bills. So just focusing on like, we were living in this tiny little shack, 2 pit bulls, 2 fucking crazy ass pit bulls. And, I was a temp. I didn't have any benefits. She's pregnant. She's working like 2-3 fucking bullshit jobs, like, waitressing jobs, shit like that. And then I was just like, yeah, I got to buckle down.
You remember that, Otto?
Sounds familiar.
Similar grind.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was what, 2014, I think, for me.
Yeah. Like, so 2009 I started at that company as a temp. It wasn't until 2015 I finally got hired full time. And then it was cool, man. But I stopped doing videography, music, like digital art, like everything. I stopped creating everything. And then I 5 years later, wondering why I'm fucking depressed and I have anxiety and like trying to figure out what's missing from my life. And it was like, oh yeah, this creative outlet that I had since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I just completely gave it up.
Remember that too.
Yeah, I remember that. A lot of similar stories there.
Did you try getting like full-time or as close as you could get in that industry before you decided to go into temp stuff, or was it just so hard to find gigs?
As a audio engineer?
Well, I know about audio engineering. I was more talking about like the video stuff. But
the video
I didn't realize
stuff.
you did the audio stuff too.
No, so like at that time, the audio engineering, I went to Full Sail, so I got, I spent a ton of fucking money, of my mom's money to go get this fucking bullshit degree,
Right.
and so I was doing, right out of the gate, the day I graduated, I got a call from a studio in Philly, and I started like an internship, but they weren't paying anything.
Yeah, they don't pay shit.
They don't pay shit. And I live in the Poconos, so it's hour and a half, 2-hour drive to get to the studio, and for like 2-3 weeks I did that. I completely ran out of money, and I was just like, I can't show up tomorrow. Like, I want to be here. Like, it was a really dope studio. Like, Kanye was recording there. Fucking they did like Usher, like they did everybody, R&B, hip hop, like Beanie Siegel, Jay-Z, like all these fucking Rockefeller guys. And so it was like exactly kind of where I wanted to be at that time, and I just ran out of money, and I just had to stop showing up, unfortunately.
And what's the dirty secret of that profession is that the only jobs are at churches.
Yeah.
Churches or just working in like AV as like
hockey arenas. That's the other one that's big.
I actually majored in music recording.
Yeah.
But now I'm a software engineer. So
The
music recording part did not pan out.
I looked into it and decided there was no money in it and didn't major in that.
Basically, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't figure that out until I graduated.
Speaking of Philly, one of the things that stood out, and it was years ago when Vinny Paz did an interview with Joe Rogan, and he was just talking about like the audio engineer at like just talking about how you carry yourself as a musician. Yeah. And he said, I would do these small clubs and, do all these, like he did Auto Bar in Baltimore, but one thing that he always stuck with him, he's like, dude, I never gave the sound guy shit. Cause he's like, dude, you think this motherfucker wants to listen to you? He's been doing this shit since the 70s. He like did big concerts. Like he's done fucking Iron Maiden. He doesn't give a fuck how your mic sounds. Like be nice, be kind. Don't be a dickhead. Like, you know what I mean? He's like,
if you don't,
he's like, this dude doesn't give a fuck about you. And if you give him shit, guess what? You're going to sound like shit. Like, so be respectful to people. Like, like you give what you get, and I was like, damn, that.
Yeah, nobody gives a fuck about the engineer.
Yeah.
Well, nobody cares about the engineer either, right? So like I used to work at this little biker bar not that far from where I'm living now, and it was just like all these fucking like really hardcore heavy metal fucking bands, and just like but like really really underground bands. Like nobody knows who these fucking like. So the best that, and I still got one of their t-shirts. So this fucking band, their name was Fuckface. And their t-shirt,
Hate Watch.
Hate Watch. Yeah, Mike Heiss on the fucking t-shirt. And it was like their t-shirt. They wound up giving me a t-shirt because they came up to me afterward. This is the only time where like being an engineer actually made me feel good about what I was doing. They came up and they're like, "Man, our audio sounded so great. Like it's never been better." Like all this shit. And I'm like just fucking trying to figure shit out, right? Because I don't really know anything. And so they give me a t-shirt, and I still have. I don't know why I haven't been trying to throw it out for fucking 15 years, and I can't get myself to do it. So it's just a picture of a woman's face, and her mouth is a pussy, and underneath it says "fuck face." And it was like the worst fucking music ever, right? Because I'm like a hip hop, like I like rock and shit, and at that time I was touring with my friend's band, which was like almost like a Linkin Park type of style. It was like rock and hip hop kind of fused together, so it was pretty cool. Like
and July type stuff.
Yeah. And and then this fucking types of bands I'm doing sound for, and it's just like nobody gives a fuck about the engineer though, man. I'll tell you what, I did get a lot of pussy back in those days, though. Lots of pussy. So much so the band I wasn't in kicked me out of the fucking band because I was hogging all the groupies. I was like a side just a side act to the fucking band, and they wanted kicking me out.
They probably knew. They were like, "Yeah, look, man, you're probably fucking so many chicks' faces, so we're just gonna give you a shirt."
Here's a t-shirt, kid.
Yeah, and I get the fuck out of here. I was way more handsome than they were, and I think that's what it was. They were just dirty fucking rockers. You know how it is.
Yeah,
you guys look like you know how it is.
Mm-hmm. I know how it is.
So anyway, so like that's kind of how I started doing videography, but then I fell ass backwards into this pharmaceutical job, and I was there for 13 years. I was like 5 years as a temp, and then I got hired full time, and then I was a production tech, made it up to a senior tech, and then I skipped the next step, and then I was at a manager associate scientist was my label or my fucking job title right before they terminated me for being unvaccinated for COVID. So it was pretty interesting journey from like 2009 to this past year when I finally got fired. But like pretty unprecedented for them to do this shit, even for a vaccine company. A lot of people assume like, well, you work for a vaccine company, of course you had to be vaccinated. I got to get out of this habit of saying we because I don't fucking work there anymore. But that company makes all sorts of vaccines at the site that I was working at in Swiftwater. The main thing that I worked on was the flu vaccine. I was in influenza manufacturing for the majority of my career there. And we make like yellow fever, diphtheria, like fucking meningitis vaccines, like all sorts of shit there. And a bunch of kind of like shit that's just in research and development. And never in the entire time that I worked there did they require me to get vaccinated for anything. Now, like, I'll kind of give you a little insight on what like flu vaccine manufacturing kind of looks like. There's a couple ways that you could produce the flu vaccine, but the main way and the old school way and the way that they do it at that site is they use chicken eggs and chicken embryos. Mm-hmm. So what they do is we have several buildings at that site. That the old building, they did about 300,000 chicken eggs every single day. They had built a newer building in like 2015 that did 600,000. And then they just built another building that does 900,000. And the idea was like when they built the second building that they were going to turn the first one off, but they were like, well, we can just make more money and make more vaccines if we just keep this thing fucking rocking. So now they have all three buildings, although I'm pretty sure they're a little shorthanded these days. So I'm not sure how much they're able to run all three. But yeah, so we would get, a truckload of these chicken eggs every single day. We would inoculate them with the actual virus. And then we would incubate those for, 2 days. And then that would allow the chicken embryo to actually develop the vaccine like naturally in its body. And then you would take those out of the hot box. You'd put them into a cold box for a day or a half a day. And then that would force the blood in like the fluid and the chicken egg back into the body of the chicken to try to survive. Right. So like if you're out in the cold, your limbs go first because the blood goes in your core and tries to like keep you alive, right? So that's why you get like frostbite in your toes and your fingers. So that's what the chicken does, right? And then you take it out of the cold box and you bring it into this room called harvest and you cut the chicken egg open, you flip it over, and then there's different ways to extract the fluid, but the way that we did it was you would flip it over and then the allantoic fluid would just come out of the top of the egg. And then we would basically take that, you would throw out all these fucking chickens, all the embryos. Now these embryos are like, they're about as big as a below average penis, I guess. I don't know. Like they're pretty small.
I can relate. Yeah. Not got a little smaller.
A little bit smaller, but they had eyes. Some of them had feathers and shit like that. It was like a pretty disgusting process because you're throwing like 500,000 of these things through a fucking machine every day, and then you got to scrape the machine clean. So it's pretty gross. Pretty nasty. And then you would take that fluid and you would like purify it and inactivate the virus, and then you would basically turn that into millions and millions of doses of vaccines, right? So I worked in all these egg rooms over the years, but the one that I worked in the most and I had the most experience in was harvest. And that's where you're cutting it open. You get that fluid all over the place. I would get that shit in my eye, in my mouth. I would have chicken blood all over me, like, what the fuck? Like nasty. Wow. And never did they require me to get a flu vaccine ever. So it's just like if any process was going to require something, like you would think, like on the surface, yeah, that sounds like one where they would make you get the vaccine. Would think. Yeah, so they didn't. So it's very unprecedented. And then to kind of like contrast that with one where you actually are required. So if you work in yellow fever production, that's a live virus. You are required to be vaccinated for yellow fever in order to work in that area. But like, let's say that I didn't want to take the vaccine, they would just move me to a different department. Well, over the past 2 years, they just stopped doing that shit. They were like, oh, you don't want to fucking play ball? Well, then get the fuck out of here. Instead of just moving you somewhere else where you would be more comfortable working. And then with this, and with the COVID shit, like they don't have a COVID vaccine at that company, you know, eagerly trying to develop one. And actually, I just saw a news article saying that they were working with, I think, I don't know if it was GlaxoSmithKline. I think it was Glaxo, GSK, that they were developing. They were just focusing on boosters. So it's just like, you know, they're just, the thing is, man, they get tons of money from the government, from the Department of Defense.
Shocking.
You know, hundreds of millions of dollars to build these buildings. And this is why they're kind of like going along with the fucking narrative of everybody's got to be vaccinated for COVID, even though it doesn't make any sense. That the longer this thing goes on, the more obvious it becomes that you don't fucking need it. In order, you're like, if you have it, you're going to get COVID. If you don't have it, you're going to get COVID. You're going to spread it to all your coworkers. And that was like the idea of what they were pushing. And
right. And the thing is like now the boosters are only boosting the antibodies from the original virus, not the Omicron strains or Delta strains. So you're boosting what, antibodies for a disease that's no longer around right now?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And, you know, so like this is kind of where I started getting a little fed up. So like I've always been super skeptical, you know, ever since I found Alex Jones back in 2004, you know, I started getting real skeptical. But like since like Iraq, right? The Iraq war invasion or the lead up to it, that's when I really started waking up to like, oh, I think these people kind of been lying to us this whole time.
They might not have our best interest.
Yeah, because I was still buying the 9/11 shit. Like, yeah, we got to go get them, you know, like all the way up until then, until like it was like Colin Powell and all the fucking agencies saying,
and then you're like, wait, that's not them.
Yeah.
Hold on a second here.
Wait, those aren't those guys. I thought these guys were from Saudi Arabia. What the fuck happened?
Yeah.
And the mobile vans of weapons of mass destruction.
Oh, dude, like remember even like going into Afghanistan, they would like talk about like Bin Laden has these underground deep bunkers and caves with a labyrinth of, you know, God knows what, and just and it would be in Time magazine with like a 10-page fold out and all this. Like that's why we got to go after Al Qaeda. Like people don't remember the levels of propaganda then.
Yeah, meanwhile, he's at an Airbnb in Pakistan, like over the fucking border, just hanging out with his 48 kids and fucking wives and shit.
Right.
Yeah, but that's like when I started waking up, right? But like, so I've always been like, I haven't taken a flu vaccine since 2010. And the only reason why I did, because I was working at this company. And this is, if you remember, this is when swine flu started. Like swine flu came back around and it was like some hot shit.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be what they made COVID actually become. That's what swine flu was supposed to be. And I remember I was still
in more ways than you know.
Yeah. Genetically and, you know, formulation wise, everything. I remember they had a clinic and they were like, all right, everybody can, you know, go down and get a flu vaccine for free. And I was like, no, I'm good. And back then I was like in the gym all the time. I was eating right. I was like, you know, I was feeling good about myself. So I was like, nah, I don't really need it. I'm good. And my manager at the time looked me dead in the fucking eye and he goes, listen, man, I know you're really trying to get hired full time, right? He's like, so let's say you don't go and get the shot and then you happen to get sick. It's going to look really bad on you. And I don't know. And I'm like, loud and clear. I went right down there and got the fucking shot, you know? So that was the last time I got a flu vaccine. And it was because he coerced me into fucking doing it. He held that carrot in front of me. Yeah.
So many people fell for that.
So like, so that was the last time. So, but I've always been like super skeptical. But these last 2 years, man, have been something else. And I feel so justified every day that goes by. I feel more and more vindicated and justified in my decision that I made for myself. Like now, if you want to go get the shot, like I 100% support you going and getting it. I don't agree that you need it depending on your situation, but I would never be the type of person to tell you like, no, you can't go get that or you're fucking stupid. I might think it in some cases, but I would never, you know, like force you to not get it or get it. And it just seems like there's only one side of the conversation that is taking that approach, and it's the unvaccinated side. The people who, the majority of the people, I should say, and certainly the people at my job for the most part, who were in compliance with this policy they put out and went and got all the fucking shots and the boosters and everything, they don't think you should have a choice. And it's just funny because this is the same my body, my choice crowd when it comes to abortion.
Yeah, right.
But now when it comes to this particular vaccine, and
total
like
shitlibs.
I saw people who were like the same way as me with the flu vaccine and every other fucking vaccine for that matter. Just like, oh yeah, like if you want to get it, you should get it. But if not, that's cool too. Until this one. And then their whole entire fucking mode changed. And they just kind of went like fanatic with it. And it's pretty interesting to see. You know, like if I was working at, this is how I always say it, if I was working at McDonald's or Burger King, I would understand why they were leaving out pretty important parts of the conversation about natural immunity and herd immunity and just like the data that's coming out and all these studies that were coming out. That would make sense because they would have no fucking reason to know any of that information and they wouldn't be like educated on it. But I worked in a place, you know, with thousands of employees with the literal experts on this topic in my area. And these people were leaving those parts of the conversation
It's different
out.
this time. This is a unique thing, brother. It's unique. It's not the same thing.
Back when this whole thing started in 2020, you know, we have lots of like all hands meetings, like beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of the year. And there was only a couple of us, a handful of us who were actually willing to speak out. And I've always been very, you know, outspoken about everything there, which is funny because that's what got me from a temp all the way to a manager, associate scientist level. Every step of the way was, Mike, we're just so happy that you're like 100% honest with us. We don't have to, like, we know you're not pretending.
Damn.
When you're talking to us, and we're talking about senior director levels. We're talking about the guy who runs the fucking site in Swiftwater, Rakesh. He, you know, like I had like personal one-on-ones with this guy and he was just like, I'm just so happy like that you don't pull any punches, even with me. I'm like, yeah, that's just who I am. And I'm never going to like, I'm not going to kiss your ass because you make $300,000 a year and I'm, you know, making far less, although I was making a very good living there. And it's just like, I just would rather be upfront with you. That way, you know where I stand. And like, I know where you stand. You know where I stand. Everything's out on the fucking table. Like, I'm not going to be disrespectful, but there's no way that I'm going to look the other way, especially when it comes to important shit. So that got me as far as it did. And then when it came to this shit in 2020, oh man, you would see like when I would stand up and start asking these fucking questions and I would start putting these things in the Zoom chats and these all hand meetings, they would just shut the fucking meetings down. They would go, all right, now it's time for questions. We got about 20-30 minutes for questions. We're really excited to hear your questions. And then
God forbid you ask the wrong question.
Well, first question out of the gate would be, well, what do we think about natural immunity for COVID? Oh, well, looks like we're out of time. And they would just like shut the chat down. They would just completely fucking take the stream off. Wow. And it was
like
just
the
like,
Mr. Burns, or it's like what? No, shit. What was it? On The Simpsons? We pressed the independent thought alarm button. They're like, oh, that's a great question, Lisa.
yeah,
the table.
Shut it all down.
I'm fascinated by these like meetings where you guys have your dicks out on a table. That's interesting to me.
Well, that was one thing. That was one thing you brought. That was one thing that you brought up on Dan Smots that I thought was interesting. This is going back a couple months when you laid this all out, and you think there was a change in management, correct? Or you saw like a lot of management within your company that were former quote Pfizer executives. Do you think that was playing in?
Yeah, so I had this inside joke. So like, so this is before 2020. So about 2019-ish, they started hiring a lot of people who came from Pfizer. Now there was a Pfizer plant in, I think it was somewhere in PA. I think it was in Philly somewhere that they shut it down and they laid a ton of fucking people off, right? And I don't remember exactly the stipulations around that, but I'm pretty sure it was because they fucking sucked at what they were doing there.
They were making oxycodone there, and they finally were shut down.
yeah. So there's a thing. It's called a man, I'm gonna forget. I think it's called a letter, like a 408. They call it, that the FDA will give a company. So every other year, the FDA is supposed to go to all these different sites. Like and they don't tell you, they don't tell you when they're coming, and they just show up and they start inspecting documents and training and like training records, and everything there is just like fucking bureaucracy out the ass. And you have to be trained on like 40 documents just to sign something off, and like, you know, it's like a very serious thing,
You
right?
had to sit through a lot of PowerPoints to just sign your name to shit.
Yeah, lots of PowerPoints. We called the ISO train was the system they used, and it was just like tons of videos and readings all the
Death
time.
by PowerPoint.
Yeah, I mean, when you get hired there, even as a temp, you sit through 2 weeks of just reading documents, and it's funny how they do it. And we always complained about it. It's like you sit down, you read documents about this manufacturing machine that's like, I don't know, 200 pages long. You have no idea what any of the words mean. Like nothing makes sense. And then like they make you do that for 2 weeks. And then you go on the floor and you start actually learning the job. And then you go, oh, wait, I think I read something about this one time. And then, so it's like kind of backwards. It's like, I get it. You got to be trained on shit to actually do shit. But it's like the wrong way of fucking doing it, in my opinion. So like this site got shut down for whatever reason. They started laying all these people off. So Sanofi and especially at Swiftwater, they started hiring all these like director level employees, manage like low level, like my level management positions, and then up the chain all the way up to the guy who's running the site, Rakesh. And he's I guess his like actual title would be like site leader or some shit. He's not the CEO. The CEO is Paul Hudson. It's a company that's based out in France. It's a multinational corporation. Yeah, this guy Rakesh. So he was from Pfizer. The director that worked in my department was from Pfizer. The guy who worked alongside of him, because there, you know, for every manager, there's, you know, a fucking director or 2 directors, and then for every director, there's 2 senior directors, and like they just figured out a way to pay themselves more and more fucking money, and then just like by osmosis, just like fucking multiply all the way at the top. Meanwhile, at the low level where you actually need more people to run machines and like have people staffed up, people would quit or get fired or just leave, and they would be like, well, we're not going to backfill those positions right now, so you're just going to have to do more with less. And then they would hire 4 more director level fucking people who are just going to meetings all day.
Big promotion, Pete. Big promotion. You're going to have 4 people working under you. Like, wait, you're going to fire my friends? Like, what the
Sounds
fuck?
like a pyramid scheme almost, you know?
Yeah, it's almost, yeah, almost. So like all of these fucking guys from Pfizer started showing up. And I was just like, so this is before COVID hit. I was like running this like inside joke all around the site. Like, hey, yeah, you know, like all these guys are being sent here. I think Pfizer's taking over. Like they're destroying Sanofi from the inside. Like all these fucking guys are moles and they're just sending them over here. Yeah. And I was just like saying that for like a year straight. And then, and all of these fucking guys are like the worst decision makers ever. Like they were just making decisions that made absolutely no fucking sense. It would draw timetables out on getting fucking projects done. Like head counts were all fucked up. Schedules were all fucked up. Like everybody was getting demoralized down at the lowest levels. And it was just like becoming like, as time went on, like people were going like, hey, I think you're kind of onto something with this fucking Pfizer sending moles here from the inside out and just like destroying us. And like, you know, and then turns out everything's brought to you by Pfizer now, and apparently so is Sanofi. So like Sanofi is forcing their employees to take a vaccine. That like it would almost make more sense if it was like their product. It was like, hey man, we got this vaccine and we want you to take our vaccine. And then that'll like bolster our numbers to the public and to the market. It'll make it look like there's thousands and thousands of people who are already on this train, and then the public will want to get on board more. But they're pushing Pfizer's vaccines onto the employees at Sanofi. And it made no sense to me, because in the past, that would never fucking happen. You would never hear that company go, hey, we don't have this product, or our product on this fucking thing isn't as good, so just go get Pfizer's version of it because it's way, way fucking better. No. They would rather just push their bullshit product on you because you happen to fucking work there. So it was just like this weird set of circumstances. The way that everything kind of fucking worked out, I just feel very vindicated at this fucking point.
Clearly, man, that's fucking rough. It sounds like, to me, like it sounds exactly how this would unfold. Like if I just heard the story, I could just hear it like talking like oh, slowly you just got more and more pressure, and people like got in the job from Pfizer. It's just, god damn, it's like, how predictable is it? Yeah. Like I don't just hearing the story from for the first time. It's
So like so in November of last year is when they first communicated from the U.S. Crisis Committee, which again is just like a bunch of fucking senior director people. When COVID hit in 2020, I was still working in production. I wasn't at a manager level yet. I was senior tech. And for me to do my job along with the several hundred other fucking people, you had to show up to work to do your job. There was no Zoom it in, like there was no remote work to run a fucking production machine. So all through 2020 and all through 2021, when it was the scariest it could have been and the most dangerous it could have been, we were all forced to come on site every single fucking day and then some, because back then when like somebody would think they had COVID, like I remember there was a guy who worked in a different building, but I shared a locker room with him. And I happened to like talk to him for like 4 seconds, like this one day. Like everybody found out that he's been out. I think he has COVID. So I called up the health center and I'm like, hey, I know I'll call him Frank. His name's not Frank, but I'm like, hey, I talked to Frank for like 4 seconds on the sidewalk last Tuesday. Like, I don't know if this is something I should be concerned about. So this was like February, March. This was like April 2020. And they put me out of work for 2 weeks straight. They paid me to stay home. And like, I fucking talked to this dude in passing. Like, there was no way I was ever going to get COVID, but like, there was no understanding even at my company of like how this whole thing was going to fucking work and be transmitted. It was just like better safe than sorry kind of attitude. Yeah. So like back at that time, we were all being forced to stay to come on site, right? And then work through all sorts of shit like that. And then a bunch of people would get put out of work because like they talked to Frank for 4 seconds on Tuesday. And then they would be out for 2 weeks. And then if anybody was like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little weird. All right, well, you're out for 2 weeks too until we can know that you don't have COVID. So like you were like really working with like half a fucking shift and like just trying to like keep this fucking train going to make them money and to put product out. Now, mind you, we're not making COVID. Back then there was no COVID vaccine, but we're just like still trying to get product out to the market for this company. Meanwhile, all of these senior directors and mid-level directors and not like managers for my department because they had to come in also, but like anybody above them, they were all remote. This U.S. Crisis Committee, they were all working remote for 2 fucking years straight. And they're the ones that are pushing this thing last November going, hey, come February of 2022, you're going to have to be vaccinated for COVID or else you're going to be terminated. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're either going to prove that you're vaccinated or you're going to get the fuck out of here. And then, so like back in November, there was about 400 of us who were unvaccinated. And these are like rough numbers. No way for us to really know how many. But from what we understood, it was about 400. I know a couple people who are like admins for the guy who runs the site. And they were like telling me like, yeah, we think it's about 400 people. Right. And, so like that was in November. So back in November, I'm like, okay, well, we better start fucking speaking up now because we were seeing this shit happen at other companies. And as long as they spoke up, the shit never fucking happened. It's just like, once you know the bottom line is going to get affected, oh, we're going to lose 400 fucking people. Like, all right, well, we can't lose 400 people. So it's not that scary anymore. But nobody spoke up. Everybody was terrified to lose their job. So it was like a couple things. Some people started writing on the wall and they just started quitting and going and work for other companies where they didn't have to be vaccinated. So right off the bat, started losing people out of that 400. Then like there was people in my group who were just like, well, I'm going to run this thing all the way to the end and see how far I could take it. And hopefully they back down. But not enough people spoke up against it. So like not even enough unvaccinated people spoke up against it, but definitely people who were vaccinated, they weren't going to speak up because they were in compliance.
So wait, there were other companies like yours that were not requiring it?
Yeah, so like my company at my site, so like my company has sites all around the world. They're based in France, right? And you would think in comparison, the United States should be more free when it comes to this type of shit than France is. They have sites in Canada. Clearly, Canada is not a free fucking nation, right? Especially under Trudeau.
Little Castro up there.
Yeah, little Mr. Castro. You would think that it would be worse off in these countries, just at my company.
Yeah.
And they weren't even doing this in France, and they weren't doing this in Canada. They're not even doing it at all the sites in the U.S. So in
That's
Tennessee,
fucked
they
up.
have a law in the state of Tennessee where you cannot force vaccination. A company can't force vaccinations on their employees. So they got away with it because they already had something on the books.
Yeah.
But these other sites in different countries, probably enough people, either like, I'm assuming like enough people spoke up early on where they were like, well, we can't lose that many people or else we're going to go under. But they felt like at my site and in a site in Boston and in Jersey, well, not enough people are speaking up. So we could get rid of 50 people, 100 people. There's 2,500 people to 3,000 people that work at just my site alone in Swiftwater. So if you lose 100 people, who gives a fuck, man? You know what I'm saying? It's the best paying job in this town. And by far, and they know that, and they've always used that to their advantage to keep people here, even though you would make double at another, like if you just went to Jersey at another company or to Philly, you would make double in the same position I was in. I would make double. But it would like you wouldn't want to travel, and especially now because fucking gas. But the past couple of years, people were like, well, that's not holding me back anymore. I'm just leaving. So people started leaving many years ago to go to these other companies and these other sites because they would just make more money.
And this is in Jersey, you said?
No, where I'm at is Swiftwater, Pennsylvania in the Poconos.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but we have sites all over the place.
Yeah.
So in November there was about 400 of us, and then they said the deadline was in February, and then in February they pushed it back to March, and then in March they pushed it back to April. So there was like some hope there that like, oh hey, they must be pushing it back because they know like it's just a
People
bad
are fighting
idea.
it.
Yeah, people are fighting it. Nobody was really fighting it. It was like a handful of us. And then and then as that deadline gets closer, more people just quit preemptively, more people just fall into compliance, they start getting the shot, and then by the end of it, come April, we assume there's probably roughly about 100 of us, and we all get terminated. Now in January I started having like severe depression and anxiety because of this whole fucking situation, and I went on a short-term disability. And I could get 3 months full paid. And I didn't take the 3 months right off the bat. In my mind, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm going, let me take a month off, mental health. Excuse me. I'll spend time with my family. I'll start seeing a therapist, try working some of this shit out. And then if by the end of the month, I'm like still fucked up, I'll just extend it. Well, that was stupid because they knew what was fucking coming for me anyway. So they denied the extension. So from mid-March all the way till I got fired, which was beginning of like first week of June, was April, May. In May, when I finally got fired, they weren't even fucking paying me because they kept denying my my appeals of their fucking denials. And then there was like a couple of people like that, but mostly everybody got fired April 15th. Actually, April 20th was like the fucking deadline. And probably about 100 people, man. Now you're talking about people who, some of them were newer employees, but a lot of them worked there for 24 fucking years. Exceeds expectations on all their fucking yearly reviews. Dedicated to that company every fucking day, working doubles, working weekends, just like sacrificing everything to make sure that. Yeah, like obviously they're collecting a check, but to also like do the right thing by the fucking company because they really believed in what the company was doing, and they just fucking terminated all these fucking people, like with kids and shit like that. So it was just like fucking crazy, man, for a company that's like so publicly about saving lives and doing the right thing by people. And of course, it's a multinational company, so they're all about inclusivity and diversity.
It's that ESG shit.
The ESG shit all the fucking way. And ultimately, I feel like that shit's just going to destroy companies like that.
It is. It's going to. Yeah.
It's supposed to.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
how did that make you feel? Hearing people from the Libertarian Party tell you, well, that's the right of their employer, just that they set the rules, and that's the real pure libertarian stance.
Yeah, those people are retarded.
I'm gonna stick up for those people in one regard. Nobody was gonna fucking do anything until it got that bad.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like-
now listen. Yeah, it would have been far easier for me to just get the shot. You know what I'm saying? I have an 8-year-old
Yeah.
son. I have a wife who's a first full-time nursing student. So I'm the only one
Oh.
making money, you know?
My wife just graduated nursing school, so
Yeah,
I know
just graduated too last month, and she's waiting to take her NCLEX right now. So until
Good
she
luck.
takes that and
Good
she
luck.
fucking gets back into the job field, like now I'm just working for myself. So it's just like, but at that point, it's like so stressful, you know what I'm saying? And like, you're
Yeah.
right, man. Like nobody was gonna fucking say anything until it affects them, though. So those
Yeah.
people who are saying that, you know, that are like, well, you know, it's a private company, they can do whatever they want. Actually, it's a publicly traded fucking company, so technically, it's not really a fucking private company, but it's not affecting those people. Those people aren't in the position that I was in and that my coworkers were in, or else they would have been saying the shit that I was saying. None of them would have been like, well, it's a private company. I guess they could destroy my life. And now I'll have to go figure something out. You know, like, what do you do for like people? Like, it's bad enough for somebody like me who has a kid and a wife who's not working at the time. What do you do for somebody who's 50 years old? They've been working at that company their whole fucking life. They're like a couple years away from retirement. They have no fucking like motivation or ambition or even like any kind of like inspiration or any like confidence that they can go and start over again.
Yeah, they were on
Yeah, like,
cruise
like,
control
what
of
if they
like
don't-
Autobots for a while.
Yeah.
Like, what if they don't have like the skills? You know, what I mean, like they have one certain skill they've been, you know, like you said, they're so close to retirement. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, start
Like you
over?
take this goo out of the eggs and we make a vaccine, and you may or may not get it in some orifices.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm of a mind. I wish they would have went harder because I think there's still too many people that fucking didn't get it.
Get the what?
No, I mean people that didn't fucking understand what this is about.
Yeah.
I wish I would. That's the whole thing with everything they do is they do the slow rollout, and so
Yeah.
people have time to adjust to the new normal. If they'd went where they were always going to go back in 2020, right
Mhm.
from the get, this would have been a way different the past 2 years because people would have lost their shit immediately.
Yeah.
You know, push the line. Like I get upset that they didn't try more because you'd have more Republicans on our side. You'd have more of the people that are fence sitters on the left that come over to say, no, this is bullshit. I ain't fucking doing it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think you're right.
It sucks, but like,
Yeah.
it's like people, we're too comfortable in our world, and we're not gonna fucking do the revolutionary shit that needs done because we're too comfortable.
Yeah. No,
Something needs to break
you're
it.
100% right. August 2020, right? Like I'm showing up to fucking work still. It's 100 degrees outside. Where we park is the tiers, right? It's like a fucking quarter-mile walk from where I gotta park to where my building is. I'm outside completely by myself. There's nobody around me. They're requiring me to wear a face mask on that walk from my car to the fucking building. And that's what they were doing like in August of 2020. They were doing that for a fucking year. And like a lot of people, and you're right. So like a lot of people were like really fucking confused and like they were pissed off about that. So I think you're right. If they were able to develop something a little bit quicker and would have been able to go a little bit harder a little bit sooner, I think a lot more people who are fucking quiet about it would have saw the writing on the wall. But again, like, you know what, man, for people who are in compliance for this thing. So I would have these conversations right in the cafeteria. They got a huge cafeteria there. You know, you got fucking hundreds of people around you, right? So now this is like a couple months before I'm getting fired. This is like November, December of last year. So there's people back on site, like a lot of people who are remote are coming back on site now. So there's a lot of people around, right? And you're still required to wear your fucking face mask inside or whatever. In between bites, you could like take it down, stupid shit like that. So I'm talking to people in the hallway. I'm talking to people in the cafeteria, and like they're like, I got the vaccine and I'm vaccinated, so they're not gonna fire me. But like, I think it's complete bullshit what they're doing, and they like start whispering. And I'm like, hey. I'm like, stop whispering this fucking part. And now I'm starting to project even more so everybody around us can hear what the fuck we're talking about. And I'm just like, listen, this is the part you need to not fucking whisper. I'm like, because there's going to be hundreds of people who are going to get terminated for being unvaccinated, and it makes no sense. And you don't agree with it. So you need to speak up. And then like now people are starting to look and shit like that. But no matter what I did, people would just fucking put their head down and they'd stay in their fucking lane. because they wouldn't want to jeopardize their fucking jobs. You know what I'm saying? Like they got kids in college, whatever it is. So like these people and the higher ups, the directors and the senior directors, there's a guy there who works for HSE. He's the fucking senior director there now. I met him on a fucking whim. My wife used to work at this company too, right? So she met him on a whim about not vaccinating our kids. So back then, like when our son was born, we had a lot of questions about just doing the rollout of vaccines they wanted to do. So this is 2014. I'm not like an anti-vax person, but I will ask all the fucking questions, right? So all of the pediatricians that we were first going to, we would start asking them like, hey, just simple questions like, hey, what's in this stuff? Like, is
how
there
many of them threaten to take your kid?
Let me fucking check this out, right? So like none of them threatened to take the fucking kid away, but they all made us feel like we were fucking crazy just for going. Can we spread this out a little bit more? Is that possible?
My boy, Patrick, they weren't going to let him leave the hospital because he was asking questions about the vaccine scheduled when he was like at the actual birth. He was just asking the questions, and they less than coming out directly, but made it seem like if you want to try some shit, we will have the police and you won't take your kid home.
Yeah, it's fucked up. I mean, we're all of pretty much the same age. We're all like 80s kids, right? Yep. And you see the vaccine schedule of us as 80s kids, and guess what? We're still thriving and surviving. But then you see like, all right,
well, thriving, but I'm depressed.
But here's the thing that you don't think about.
But then you double the vaccine schedule or whatever the fuck it is, you know. And
that's the thing. Like,
it's kind of like, wait a minute, let's think about this.
It's not the vaccine schedule kids take anymore.
Exactly, it's nothing that we grew up with. Nothing.
Now.
So just that alone should like give people pause. Like, wait a minute, let's think about this. Is this really fucking necessary? And this is this good for the long term?
We stuck with the pediatrician we have solely because we got lucky, and the first guy we had was okay with extending the vaccine schedule.
Yeah,
we weren't necessarily against getting them, but I didn't feel like it was necessary to fucking jack my 1-year-old up with everything under the sun.
Yeah,
so let's spread it out, you know. But I knew full well my kid was never going to be in a public school anyway, so it didn't fucking matter in that regard. but you know, it's what we could legally get away with.
And so I told what Matt Rice posted, you know, it's like things like this gives us pause. Like, we're not fucking crazy. We're just, you know, But
he says 1 in 35 kids is born with autism now, and it was
it's going to be 1 in 8. They project by 2045, I think it is.
Yeah. Now there's that. I mean, if you ask me, like personally,
it could be diet. There's a lot of factors.
I think there's a lot of over recording of it because everyone needs to feel like, you know, you do have a touch of it, and you know, like it's a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's a psychological diagnosis. There's nothing they can like look. They can't like take an fMRI of your brain and be like, oh, that one's got
it's
autism.
To Otto's point, it's like being gay now, though. It's like you want to be on the spectrum. You know, it's the cool thing. You know,
it's like it depends on where you get your stats too. Like libertarian communities, yes, autism.
It is correlating. It is correlating though. How many? So wait, so this is good news.
Yeah, but aren't the libertarians the one not vaccinating their kids?
I was gonna say the
Isn't that an argument against your position?
Yeah, right. So maybe this is like,
I look forward to this. 1 in 8 libertarians. Yeah.
But like, so the first pediatrician we had was just like, why are you even asking? Like, that's how he fucking talked to us. Like, why are you even asking that?
Why
like,
are you even
fucking
with an attitude?
Like, you're so stupid,
Mike.
Like, what the fuck?
We took my we take our kids to this doctor. It was it's funny how it turned into this big thing because he was just a friend of a friend that we have, and it was his dad, and it was her dad. Her dad was a doctor, and we're like, okay, we have kids. Like, he's a pediatrician. We'll take him there. And he had this practice, and he was so great. Well, he recently retired a few years ago. In the process of me having like 3 kids, he retired, and then we got like this new doctor who was really great, and they turned into like this huge practice, like this blew up practice. And my wife would take the kids to the appointments, and you know they're forcing this COVID vaccine on them, and my wife's like, "No, we're not getting it." No, and she was like, "Well, it's perfectly safe. I would give it to my kids. I don't understand why you're not taking it."
I don't give a shit what you give to your kids.
Yeah,
right. She laid down this guilt trip to my wife, and my wife just wasn't having it. Yeah. And she, you know, eventually she was like, whatever. She let it slide, and you know, and whatever. They went on with the doctor's meeting. But dude, come to find out, I'm sitting on Facebook. We're at the Pennsylvania convention, and I'm just furious because like I see on the Facebook like suggested whatever, because everyone's talking about vaccines then stuff. So it picked up like the Maryland vaccine. It's called Go Vax Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the health department bullshit.
It was my health department. It was my pediatrician for my kids. She was preaching.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that shit. Yeah,
and she's the lead. She's in the lead for the state of Go Vax.
What the fuck?
To go get your kids vaccinated. And this is my personal pediatrician. And I'm like, wow. Like,
so how much money is she getting, right? Because you hear like Rand Paul's talking to Fauci, trying to figure out like, well, how much royalties are you getting? How much? And they're like, they don't want to fucking talk about it. So it's like, how much?
What's really funny is when he did disclose it, it ended in 2020.
Yeah.
So the numbers he gave ended. Oh well, I only made $190 a year off of these at most, and then up until the year 2020. Well, what about after 2020? With the time period that's actually all matters.
Well, why is he making? I mean, why is he making any money? It should be zero, right?
But, well,
and he's making royalties, dude. This isn't a fucking album sales. Like, what the fuck is going on here, man?
Greatest hits.
Yeah, the greatest hits.
Fauci's greatest. Yeah.
NIH's
greatest
hits.
Fucking,
yeah. So my
bird
doctor,
flu
man, in when the hell was it? I got COVID New Year's Eve, right? So this past Christmas, half my family, and like my family's kind of mixed, right? Half my family's vaccinated, the other half's not. So on Christmas, pretty much all of the vaccinated people in my family all got COVID, right? So we did like this half-assed Christmas, right? And then like we figured by New Year's Eve, and my family's like super close. Like I got 4 siblings, like we're all like really, really close. We do all the holidays together, everything, right? And so like New Year's Eve comes around and we go, all right, I mean, what was it, 4 or 5 fucking days later? We're like, all right, that's good. Everybody just get together, right? So the other half of us got COVID on New Year's Eve, right? So because my wife is in nursing school, she had to get vaccinated.
Same here. Same with my wife.
Which is so, and this is funny. I'm telling like 2 parallel stories here at once, right? So my wife's in school. They go, listen, if you don't get vaccinated, you can't continue to do clinicals.
Yeah.
She says to me, she goes, listen, I want to be a nurse more than I don't want this fucking vaccine, so I'm gonna go get it. I'm like, listen, you make I support your decision. I just praying that nothing fucking happens, and I'd rather you didn't, but it's up to you. Like, you're gonna do what you need to do. She gets the first shot. She goes to school. She goes, listen, I only got the first shot so far, like whatever. And they're like, well, you're technically still unvaccinated, but good news, everybody. We have a facility where you can continue to go if you're unvaccinated, so you don't have to worry about it. So they go like, well, where's this place? And they're like, well, the place you're doing it now. So the place that they're already doing their fucking clinicals at is the place that they can do clinicals at, even if they're unvaccinated. And the school fucking knew that, man. So it's just like all these companies, all these schools, like everywhere around the fucking across the board.
They're all bought in.
Yeah, man. They're all fucking just seeing how far they could push it, how many people they can get on the fucking train.
That's what they told my wife. They said, they were like, oh, we'll give you a religious exemption. Well, yeah, no problem. We'll definitely give you a religious exemption, but you can't get into the facilities to finish your schooling, so we'll have to fail you.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. What? And so she was like, she said the exact same thing. She was like, I want to be a nurse my whole life. I have to do this. Like, so like, if I have to do it, I have to do it. I don't care. And so she did it. And
crazy,
it's funny,
right?
You mentioned that, and I got my whole family. My father died right before Christmas, and we all went to the emergency room when he died. And this was right at the height of Omicron here in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And I told the story before, but just make it quick. Like the ER doctor, like he let us. We were in like this grieving room, the whole family, and the guy straight up told us, he was like, "This is the ER doctor." He's like, "I'll take you back to go see your father's body. For just 2 of you for a split second. We're running out of time." But there was like literally like people lined in the hallways waiting to get tested. Half people had COVID, other people didn't. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, "Listen, these masks don't work. The vaccine's not working." And he said, "So you're probably going to end up getting COVID." He's like, you're just going to get COVID. And lo and behold, it was like a few days before Christmas, and we all had COVID. So we all spent Christmas together with COVID.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Fuck it, man.
COVID Christmas.
Right. Yeah. So
COVID
my wife and I.
Smart song, by the way.
Yeah. So my wife and I get COVID at the same fucking time. She's vaccinated. I'm not vaccinated. Her symptoms are actually a little bit worse than mine, and they're a little longer lasting, right? So I go and I feel it's coming on, right? And I know that's what it is. So I call, or I go through the fucking little web chat thing with my doctor, and my doctor's like a network doctor, Lehigh Valley fucking network, right? And she's a young girl, And like, so I switched to this girl as my primary because when I had went in months earlier, we were talking about like how everything's been so politicized and all this shit. And I had a really, really good conversation with her. I went in for a physical. She never gave me a fucking physical. She just signed the paperwork. I was there for an hour and we were just like talking and we had like a really good conversation. And it was like that conversation where I was like, hey, is it all right if I switch to you as my primary? Because like the other guy, he grabbed my balls like 2 years ago and he didn't want to see me ever again. And she was like, well, I promise I don't want to see your balls. So yeah, we could do this. And I'm like, all right, cool. So so we were talking about how it's been so politicized, and like parts of that conversation were I was like throwing studies out to her. This is when the immunization or the natural immunity study just came out of Israel. It was like the largest fucking study at that time. And I'm like, hey, what do you think about this study? And she goes, I've never heard of it. And she's 100% on board for everybody getting vaccinated from the fucking womb to the tomb, right? So I'm like, well, that's kind of weird that like you're such an advocate for this, but you only know like half of the fucking story. Like, I'm like, how is it possible that I know about this study, but you don't know about it? It's the largest study in the world right now as far as COVID goes. And she goes, well, I don't. And like, thank you for bringing it up. I'm going to look into it. She never fucking looked into it. Right. So like, but that was a conversation we had. And I felt like, oh, wow. Like I schooled her a little bit. And like, she was saying shit to me. So she said to me, she goes, I feel like a lot of people who are against this vaccine aren't really as educated about it as they think they are. And I'm like, you're right. I think probably most people are. I'm like, but I think the same way about the people coming in and just getting the shot. And she goes, what do you mean? I'm like, how many people come in here and asking about the vaccine before they fucking go and take it? So she like thinks about it for a second. She goes, you know what? She was like, you are the only patient that I had who has asked me anything about it. She goes, mostly everybody comes in and they put their fucking arm out. She didn't curse. They put their arm out and they take the shot and they go home. She's like, none of them ever ask me anything about it. They just do it because they've been told to do it. Yep. And like, she's like, and I'm advocating for it. So obviously they feel comfortable with getting it. So it's just like, I'm like, yeah, don't you think that's a little weird? She was like, yeah. She was like, so I felt like we had made some ground there. Like, oh, wow. Because I'm like, you're the authority. I'm coming to you on something that I should know more about than you do. So like when I come in, most of these people are coming in going, oh, you're telling me I should take it for X, Y, and Z? Then I'm going to trust you because you're my doctor and you should know more about this than me. And it turns out she didn't fucking know shit. So then I get COVID, right? And I start talking to them through the fucking messenger on my thing. And the nurse that I'm talking to goes, well, there's no treatment for this. So just go like rest and drink water. And I go, well, what about these treatments? And I start sending her like the Peter McCullough fucking protocols and all of this shit, right? And she goes, it takes a little while. Now, this is all through the chat, so I'm kind of like reading into the tone. But like, it seems like they were offended. So she goes, yeah, we know all about those, and you're not getting any of them. And I go like, well, that's kind of weird because you lied to me in your last message. You said there were no treatments. And now you're saying you know about the treatments, but I'm not going to get them. I'm like, just send them to my doctor, have my doctor look at them. Maybe these things are right for me. Maybe they're not right for me, but I'd rather my doctor look at them, right? So like a couple hours goes by, the doctor fucking chimes in. She goes, yeah, I looked at everything you sent, and you're not going to get any of this. You're not going to get monoclonal antibodies because you're not a candidate for it. We're not going to prescribe you ivermectin and the prednisone, the steroid in it. She goes, now the steroid is for like inflammation and shit. But the reason why I'm not going to get it from her point of view is it will not decrease the likelihood of mortality. So I'm like, well, that's weird. I don't think that's what the prednisone is for, but okay, sure. I'm like, so I see where this is coming from. So the nurse had chimed in. She goes, listen, if you want to file a complaint, I could run a complaint up the fucking ladder for you if you're not happy with the treatment you're getting. I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'm like, you're not giving me any treatment.
It's not going to do anything.
Yeah. I'm like, what should I do if it gets worse? Go to the hospital. I'm like, well, isn't that counterproductive? I'm like, isn't the whole point of me and you being here together is to avoid me going to the fucking hospital because they're overflowing, there's no fucking beds and all this shit, right? So that night, I get 103 fever. It gets really fucking bad. My head is killing me, like all of this shit. I get linked up with a local doctor who's not a network doctor. This fucking really cool guy. I call him 6 o'clock in the morning. The next morning, he goes, "Come here, 45 minutes, park out by the dumpster." I'm like thinking, like, this is the weird. But they just wanted me to come through the back door, so I didn't have to go through the fucking the waiting room. And he brings me in there, man, and I tell him what's going on. And he goes, "Yeah, all those fucking network doctors, they're told by the admins that they are not allowed to give you ivermectin, or they'll lose their jobs. They're not even allowed to fucking talk about it.
They'll lose their license.
They'll lose their license. All of this fucking shit, right?" He gives me ivermectin. He gives me prednisone. He gives me Z-Pack. He gives me enough for me and my wife. What? He gives me 3 fucking refills of ivermectin if I want them. I never even fucking got them. And we start taking that shit, and we start feeling better. Now, my wife, who's vaccinated, she takes longer to recover. We both lose like the smell and the taste, but she loses it for like several weeks, where I only lost it for like 5 days. So it just like goes to show you, man. It's just like this fucking vaccine ain't doing what the fuck they said it was supposed to do. It started off at you'll never get COVID if you get vaccinated. Then it was like, well, you just won't get it as bad. And then it was just like, well, thank God I'm triple boosted, because I really could have been.
Like, the only people I know who've gotten it more than once are all vaccinated multiple times.
Yeah. And like, long story short,
what about Alex?
After I go to this other doctor,
but it's nothing serious. It's like
I've had it twice.
It's like I basically have borderline flu or like allergy symptoms.
After I go to this other doctor and I talk to him about what's going on, I go, you know what? I am going to file a complaint. I go back to my primary and I go, hey, I want to file that complaint. They go, and I'm like, I had to go to another doctor to get treatment. And they were like, oh, okay, no problem. We'll remove you from the network. And they removed me from the fucking network. So like, that was their response, was to just fucking blacklist me from like Lehigh Valley, man.
Oh, wow.
It's just like, what the fuck, dude?
Damn. Dude, what an episode, man. Like, this story is like, like, I didn't know anything about this. And damn, this is crazy. But
happy Father's Day, guys, too. To the fathers out
it.
there.
Yeah. It's Juneteenth. Okay. We didn't even get to
have respect.
God, I had such a good story about Juneteenth, but your story is way more, you know.
Well, we got after hours. So we're gonna hit
the after hours, because I gotta tell you, it's Baltimore Juneteenth special.
What's funny is like, this is normally what we would have done for the after hours, like all the nitty gritty inside of somebody's company, and we just totally flipped it.
I got more shit. I got some suspicious shit from me losing my job that I could tell in the after hours.
And we got some stories. We got to talk about Juneteenth and the bike fall heard around the world.
Yeah,
and
throw a shekel, and you can listen when it comes out in a couple days.
That's a good point, man. So yeah, if you guys want to hear this podcast and hear us talk more about conspiracies and crazy stuff, check out our Patreon. We have a ton of episodes already out there, hundreds of episodes at this point. You know, we can sign up for as little as $1 a month. Go to patreon.com/punkrocklibertarians and sign up. And if you don't like using Patreon because their politics kind of suck, please go to PRLfans.com and find other ways to donate to the show, including Bitcoin. And I know Bitcoin's down right now, but
that's the perfect time to buy.
It's on sale.
Exactly why you want it now.
Yeah,
I mean, isn't like the fact that Pomplamoose sucks enough of a reason not to use Patreon?
Who?
Well, I don't know what that is.
It's the Founders Band.
Oh, no.
What?
They're fucking terrible.
Okay, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this.
Let's say hi to Babs,
like the fruit.
Yeah, man. So
everybody say hi to Babs up at PorkFest.
Yes, oh god, I just made a post. I'm missing out on PorkFest, and go up to Babs's compound. You'll find him Thursdays having his party at his place. Tell him that you heard about punk rock libertarians, and you know, give him a hug for me. I miss that guy. I miss PorkFest. So, but yeah, so we also have t-shirts for sale. If you go to libertariancountry.com, use the code PRL or PRL podcast, you get a 10% discount. Use the code PRL2 and get a 20% discount if you spend $50 or more. We're also brought to you tonight by Hidden in Plain Sight by Moral Bob and Wheelie's Pharmacy too. As a matter of fact, I might be going up to Wheelie's Pharmacy in Delaware probably next weekend. There's a Libertarian Party Delaware event. I might be headed up there too. It's at Wheelie's Pharmacy. Use the code PRL podcast, get a 10% discount on all your CBD needs. And until next time, live free
or die.